Good evening, welcome. Your Subaru questions. I'm going to try and answer them. So, welcome back if you're here as a regular. Welcome for the first time if it's the first time watching. Basically, this is an open forum, so you just fire whatever question you got, Subaru related, and I will try my best to answer it. If it's tuning related or mapping related, then I can sort of refer to the map top and actually show you examples. But anything Subaru related, anything modifications, problems, check engine codes, anything basically Subaru related. I do these pretty much every week, and it's normally fairly hectic, particularly towards the end. I try and sort of keep these sessions to an hour. So if you've got a question, try and get it in early, and if you can put a little cue at the beginning of it, just so that I know it's a question. Otherwise, it can get lost in the sort of the melee of comments and chats that are going on. I've kind of changed the day from a Wednesday to a Thursday because Wednesdays sometimes I'm sort of elsewhere, and Thursdays tend to be much more local, so it's pretty much a guarantee that I can do a Thursday. So hence why the change to a Thursday night. Although having said that, next week there won't be one on Thursday or Wednesday, but I'm skipping a week next week. Just a gazillion things going on next week. So I'll be back the week after, which will be hopefully with a special guest. So we'll be interviewing, and they'll be there and open for sort of questions as well. But watch this space on that one. Right. If you don't know me, I'm Duncan. I map Subarus in the UK. I've been mapping Subarus and pretty much solely Subarus for the last 19 years. As we're in the UK, Subaru in their wisdom decided to effectively stop selling any sexy Subarus from about 2017. So, according to this, experience with the FA20 engine is limited to the BRZ or the BRZ. So probably not going to be able to give you too much information on the FA20 engine as yet. Still waiting to get hold of one for myself for testing and for experimenting, but that's a little bit further down the road. Right, I can see I've got a few of the regulars. Hi Kev, hi Mel, Colin, Steve. If you got a question, pop it in the comments. I will do my very best to answer it. Right. Okay, hi Mashiko. Right. Got a question here. There we go. Simon. Hi Simon. My WRX has suddenly started idling funny. Sounds like a Bridgeport RX-7. Nice. Rough and a bit low. Any ideas of what to check? It could be so many different things. I'd like to know what the build-up was up until that point. But if it just suddenly out of the blue just started idling funny, it could be a hose off the manifold, like a vacuum hose, one of the small ones. It could be a sensor has gone a bit skew-whiff, like a MAF sensor or a O2 sensor. It could be fuel filter blocking, or it could be the idle control valve is not working properly, and the ECU is trying to cut the rear two cylinders to bring the idle down. Could be a million different things. Are you able to plug into it and data log what's going on? Because the data will tell you what the issue is. This year, right. So you don't recommend self-tuning my 2016 WRX with an FA20, but instead going through and buying a custom map online. No, I wouldn't say that necessarily. The process for tuning is essentially the same, whether it's the FA20 or the EJ20, EJ25, or even a different engines like a 2JZ or they're all essentially the same. So you've got fuel, air, and ignition, and it's the combination of those things that will give you the power and the performance and the reliability. So if you've got software available, which Subaru Edit is set up for the FA20 engines, you've got access to all the tables to be able to map them properly. As long as you're taking precautions with the wideband, with deck cans, and kind of get to grips with what the data's telling you, then there's no reason why you can't tune those as successfully as you can with an EJ20 or an EJ25. Right. Bum, 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 bum. Right, hi Colin. When I start my car when cold, starts with -5 degrees, ignition time in sight, sounds rough. Can I change this to say +5? Yeah, is that on a normal MAF-based ROM, Colin, or is that on Carberry or one of the 32-bit speed density? If it's on a normal MAF-based ROM, there's a minimum cooling, a minimum ignition time for idle based on coolant temperature. You can maybe bring that up for a certain period of the coolant range, which would then bring the idle timing up, which might smooth out the idle a bit. Ooh. Right, here's one. Right, can the power steering reservoir from the GC8 be easily relocated, or does it require new high pressure lines? Yeah, you're probably going to need to do different lines for that, because the standard lines aren't bendable, aren't able to be really relocated. So yeah, you're going to have to make up the lines for that. But most whatever they call, we got a place locally called Thread and Pipe that will make up lines. You just tell them what the fittings you need at either end, and they'll make them up out of nice new lines, new fittings. So it's pretty easy to get them made up. Right, right. Questions are coming thick and fast. Right. Okay, right. So more information on Simon's. The top mount came off. I'm giving it some beans and it ran like a pig. Put it back and it was fine for about 2 weeks. Now suddenly has a rough idle. Right, okay, so the hose came off. Oh gosh, what would I look at? I would still be checking hoses. If it's got a slight leak idle, or a vacuum hose that's off the manifold, then it's going to mess around with the fueling, and it might be that it's messing around with the fueling enough for it to actually affect the idle, i.e. it's outside of the normal 25% either way that it can correct for. Data log would be a great thing to do. So get hold of a Tactrix cable and a laptop, and like using ROM Raider or something like that that's free. You can data log the parameters that can kind of give you an idea as to what the issue is. Data is always helpful. Hi Ollie, hope you're well. I am. Yeah, recovered from my cold, almost. Just wondering why you guys are trying to put 1060 oil in the STIs. Can't seem to find anyone else online doing the same thing. You will. I know Scooby Bits use 1060 liquid moly. I know Pole Position use the 1060 liquid moly. I know many other places that do it. It's just if you're checking with someone like OP Oils or whatever, they'll, all the online oil checkers tend to show up like a 530, which in my opinion is far too thin. So people try and, using the automated tools isn't the right solution. 1060 in my opinion works really great. And I use 1060 in my own. So yeah, that's why. Plus the liquid moly is a really good oil. Right, is there a way to test the MAF sensor to make sure it's working properly? Data is the thing. Data log it, just to see whether you're getting the normal sort of range of readings. Obviously, if you plugged into it and it's showing 0 volts or just a flat 1 volt, then it's screwed. But if you're getting the normal sort of range on the MAF sensor, then chances are it's working properly, albeit it might be slightly out of calibration. So a good way would be to borrow a MAF sensor from another car that's working perfectly and just swap it, and there shouldn't be any difference. Yeah, okay to WhatsApp. Yeah, of course. Yeah, buzz me with WhatsApp. WhatsApp doesn't get looked at that often, so don't expect an instant reply. It tends to be at the end of the day if I get a chance. Right. Right, KBMS Brown. Hi Duncan, my Bug WX has a flash map from the previous owner and it struggles to start. Also misfires for about 5 seconds. When it started, it runs at idle perfectly and starts firing when warm. Right. I would doubt whether that is something in the map that's doing that. Normally, if a car struggles to start, it's like a fuel pressure related issue or a crank or cam sensor issue, or immobilizer, and there could be a million things, but normally fuel pressure is the thing. So maybe check on the fuel pump or the fuel filter to make sure that they're not blocked and they're working properly. But I would doubt, unless they've totally messed up the map, that it would struggle to start. Right. Bum, bum, bum. Right, Moshiko, hi mate. How effective really is the throttle bypass, or the throttle body heater bypass? The two hoses that put hot coolant in one side of the throttle body and take it out the other, just to stop the throttle body heating up, or icing up rather. But it has the effect of heating the throttle body up and subsequently the air that's there. It makes no difference to the temperature of air when you're on boost and there's a lot of air going through there. But when you're in a closed throttle position where there's a block of air that's sat there, it can heat that up, and subsequently you'll get a big gulp of hot air going into the engine when you open the throttle back up again. It is quite a noticeable heat difference on that bit of air, but performance wise not a huge amount, but little bits help. That's all I can say on that. I haven't tested it power-wise because, as I say, on boost, it's not going to make any difference whatsoever. It's just the transient. All right. Oh, Jack. Hi, Jack. Hi, Duncan. I hope you're well. Where do you buy your parts from? As you never know enough good places. Lots of different places. ICP, VIP Motorsport, DL Motorsport, Advanced Automotives. Lots of different places really. Some other stuff from eBay, but sometimes eBay is quite a useful resource, but I don't buy shiny stuff from eBay. It's just essential stuff. The ICP, VIP Motorsport, and Advanced Automotives. Right, we've done that one. How is everyone? I hope everyone had a good Easter weekend. I think Easter's pretty much universal, certainly in Christian countries, which the UK is, I think, still. Right, where are we? Right, Mashiko, remember you sent something about a new sort of Tactrix that can work on Bluetooth. Any news about it? I think Tactrix are going to be releasing that soon. I haven't checked the last couple of weeks. I've been busy on some other stuff that I'll tell you about another time. But yeah, they are coming up with a new one that is Bluetooth. Whether there'd be too much of a delay between the data and the recording, I don't know. I haven't tested it, obviously. But yeah, it will be quite interesting and particularly useful because the cable that was on the old Tactrix cable or Tactrix plug, particularly on the hatchbacks, it's hanging right over your feet and it's very easy to kick it and very easy to kill them. Yeah, no problem. Fuel pressure as well. I'd probably start on that. So maybe get a gauge on the fuel pressure. If it's cold start, then maybe it's just not priming properly, or there's some kind of blockage in the system there. Right, okay, Mr. Alphista 90. On a 2006 STI 2.5, I see in the log that the knock sensor is adjusting the ignition timing. It's in the range of +5 to -6.5. Is that normal? No. Something horrible is going on in there. You need to be careful as to what you're data logging. There's three important knock bits of data that you can data log. So you've got sort of rough correction or sort of feedback knock. So that's instantaneous, what it's hearing and seeing at the moment. That will always be either 0 or a negative value. You've got fine learning, which could be a positive if the advanced multiplier is dropped down from the highest level, like 16 or 1 on a 32-bit ECU, but that will always generally be at 0, or if it's learnt through the feedback knock correction that there is an issue and it tries to correct it. It's not always very successful at doing that properly. But that would be generally on a healthy car, on a healthy map, on a car, sort of probably maximum of -1.4, -2. if you're seeing -6.5, then there's an issue. It's struggling with something. It might be detonation, but you need to find out. It could be a resonance or a heat shield rattle. It depends in the rev range and the load as to when it's doing it. But it needs to be investigated. The other thing that is tempting to data log is not correction, and that isn't actually what you think it is. So that what that would show you from the data log is what the value is in the additional ignition table. So you've got a base timing table and you've got an ignition table. If I fire the map top up, I'll show you what I mean on that. Boom, boom, boom. Right. 2 seconds and just get a file loaded up. Right, so this is a standard Bug-Eyed WRX ROM, but on the ignition advance you've got a base timing and you've got an ignition timing. So if you're logging knock correction, then it's going to return this value out of the file, out of the ROM file, less whatever the feedback knock correction is or the fine learning correction. So it's, you know, at some points that might show 12 or it might show 0 or worse. So it's not worthwhile actually data logging that. You know, if you're data logging, you want to be I'm not connected to a car. You want to be data logging these two items. So feedback knock correction and fine learning knock correction, and they'll tell you whether it's hearing anything. Obviously make some deck cans and hear for yourself, because very often the ECU doesn't hear what's actually going on. But they're the two things that you need to be data logging. But -6.5 degrees of ignition timing correction is not normal and it needs to be investigated. Megan, hi Megan. Bought an STI speed A for my car and it's 15,000 miles out. The closest I could find to my current mileage. Is it possible to get it corrected, or will I have to deal with it? As far as I'm aware, there are people that will that are able to correct the software, correct the mileage on the odometer. It's not something I do. It's not something I've got the software for. But there are people around that do correct the mileage. Yeah. I don't know how you would search or whatever. Google might throw something up, but yeah, it's mileage correction is what you need. Hi Fairs, how's your SG9 doing at the moment? Any more plans for it? The plans at the moment for it are very limited. It will be going up for sale within the next few weeks. I won't tell you what's going on, but yeah, it's going to go up for sale in the next few weeks. Just got a couple of bits to tidy up on it, but yeah, unfortunately it's going up for sale. Right, Maximilian, is there a version 2 of the VF400 coming out soon as tech advances? Not as far as I'm aware. There is a VF420, which is slightly bigger, but the internals of that I think are absolutely brilliant as it is. You know, they're 420 horsepower turbo anyway, so I think it fits exactly what people are needing. They want, you know, people are wanting 400 horsepower. It does that. I'm not sure what you're meaning there, David. How are you doing? 04 WRX stock bypass valve cause airfuel learning and corrections. Not understanding what you're meaning, David. Okay, right. So that's a bit more information. Screech sounds one of the gaskets. But yeah, I've not had many of the standard dump valves or bypass valves go faulty over the years. I think in total in 19 years I've seen one, which is why I prefer those to aftermarket ones, because I've seen an awful lot more than one of those sort of die over the years. But yeah, gaskets can break if they've been taken off or not fitted on properly. The screech sounds, yeah, it can do that. Yeah, it can affect the air fuel side of things. So if you've got a leak on the boost side of the turbo, then it will run massively rich. So you'll find that, or even a small leak, it will run rich. So it will find that it will correct that out. So it will lean it off where it's normally rich-ish on in closed loop, but it will carry that on beyond that. So it will lean it out even on boost. So not a great situation. Best to fix it. Smoke test it to find out where the air is coming from. Okay, the knock sensor was replaced. Car runs better now, but it was even worse before. It was even worse. Yeah, it could be a heat shield. Heat shield's rattling, and the ECU can hear that an awful lot, and will take out sort of 8, 10, 12 degrees sometimes if it's a 32-bit ECU, which I think yours was. Then it can, you know, take 12 degrees out for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Which is why I say make some deck cans, and you can see or actually hear for yourself whether it is something to worry about or whether it's just ECU having a little paddy fit. When stationary or slow cruising, turbo boost is minus 60 to 55. Is that normal? Yes, it is. It will only show 0 boost if you're actually bang on 0. Most of the time when the car's idling, it's at vacuum, so it's pulling. There's a vacuum in the manifold, so you know it's not on boost. To actually generate pressure, you know, would bring it back up to 0, and then positive boost is beyond that. But cruising probably up to 70 mile an hour, you'd be at less than 0. Bum bum bum. Right, if you switch from a 5-speed to a 6-speed transmission, what options do you have to adjust the speedometer? You can, what's the name of the company? It's a VSS Pro. Is a little piece of kit that can actually adjust the speedo reading. So you wire it in, generally with the ABS sensors, wire that into the speedo input, and you can adjust how much it's displaying from a speed point of view. I think they do a version that you can just amend the actual speedo reading, but at the very least, it's not many wires to connect to actually get an adjustable speedo. Here, da-da. Subaru survived Jap Fest track session. Wastegate jammed open. Okay, so you had no boost. Yeah, sometimes the depending on the turbo, but the actual rod that goes down through the wastegate can overly heat and distort and jam. Not a problem necessarily if it jams when it's open, but it's a bit of a problem if it jams when it's shut. Antonio, boa noite. Right, where are we? Gary, hi Gary. Good evening, Duncan. On 2004 WRX wagon with a 6-speed, lost reverse gear. Before was struggling to find 5th and into 6th gear. Oh, gearbox rebuild. What would be the cost for a 6-speed? It depends what's broken in there. It wouldn't be something that I would do. I would suggest sending it up to Take Sport. They are really good at building 6-speed gearboxes. There is an art to it, and they've got the skills and the machinery and all the spare parts that you need. Give Aaron a call up at Take Sport, and I'm sure he'll be delighted to quote you a price. But they're not a cheap gearbox. They're not an easy gearbox to rebuild. What makes consistent power when not limited with 95 RON? Low boost with lots of ignition advance, or higher boost with less timing? God. Put some octane booster in there. I've not tried that experiment. It depends on what the turbo's happy with. If it's happy, which it should be at 1.5 bar, and if you got a good front mount on there, then you might be able to do the 1.5 bar with less ignition timing. But yeah, I think I'd probably go the higher, like the 1.5 bar. But try the two. If you've got access to a dyno, then see whether you can actually get to a similar result with each, and then try and do some consistent back-to-back runs and just see how they react on that. I'm not sure I know the answer to that. I have not tried that comparison. I wouldn't run 95 RON for a power map on any of them. If you've got ethanol or methanol available to you in your country, then pop some of that in there and the engine will thank you for it. Bum, bum, bum. Yeah, the actuator arm. If they can they can do that. If the car's not been used for a while, then they can do that. But yeah, keep an eye on it, because if it jams shut, it's it's a real issue. Yeah, how's my STI Forester doing? As I said a few minutes ago, it's going to go up for sale very soon. Just finishing off a couple of bits, and then it's going to be up and be gone, or have a new home. Right. Yeah, the GF8 STI swap. Yeah, already broke front axle. The 6-speed gearbox and hubs and drive shafts and prop shaft are stronger, but they're a lot of money. Yeah, it's a difficult one. Was that launching it, Antonio, or was that just normal driving, just driving along? Got a few that I haven't replied to. How to see if an engine is an EJ207 instead of an EJ205. Oh, off the top of my head, I don't know that, Patrick. There's probably some meshing differences on the block, but if it's in the car, it's really difficult. If it's out of the car with the cylinder heads off, then really easy. But yeah, I don't know that off the top of my head. Right, how does it feel when you have turbo surge? So surge will be like a vacuum fibrillation of the air going into the engine, and it just feels like really jerky. Not very nice. Not good for the turbo. Not good for driving. But it's where you get an excessive vacuum at the front of the turbo, and the pipe sucks shut. That reduces the amount of air going in, which in turn releases the vacuum, and then it just does that gradually, very quickly. It means the engine can't consume the amount of air that the turbo can produce. Your nephew has tuned a VA that seems to be smelling on-fuel high boost pop and bam map, and only in hot weather from what we've noticed. Quite modified turbo injector, sports cat, etc. Yeah, smelling of fuel is a difficult one. That so I've had many people bring a car to me to check on the dyno. Oh, it's smelling of fuel. People following me saying the car smells really rich. Pop it on the dyno, it's absolutely bang on. Sometimes they'll say, oh, it's really rich, stinks of fuel. Pop it on the dyno and it's super lean. The smell of those from behind can be quite similar. So it's not always easy to determine whether it's rich or not, unless you've got a wideband. Pop in a gauge and a wideband sensor, and it'll be able to tell you whether it is or not. How are we doing time wise? Right, good. Going to get another Subaru always. I've got 2 at the moment, well 3 at the moment. One will be changed because of something else, but yes, I will always have Subarus until the day that I die. Keep an eye. Suggestions for a decent replacement upgrade for the actuator. It's probably not the actuator that was the issue. Probably the bar that goes down through the wastegate. But if it is the actuator, then Forge sell good actuators, and you can adjust the spring rates in those to actually hold the boost a bit better. But if you're doing that, obviously the map needs changing. I found your video on octane comparison helpful. Yeah, it was bloody confusing though, wasn't it? I was confusing myself. The 95 RON at the pump in South Africa, yeah. Flex fuel on Carberry, yeah. But if you got methanol available, which I know you have down there, because I think Doug runs methanol down there, then methanol, just putting 10% methanol in there and tuning to that, or 20% methanol. So if you've got a 50 litre tank, 10 litres of methanol, 40 litres of 95 RON, and that's probably the equivalent of a 99 RON map, in which case you're going to get a chunk more power and safety. So it's worth doing. Don't necessarily need flex fuel, but it does make it easier for just adding methanol when you want it. Right. Okay, if I've got a 0-mile engine built all built up ready to be installed, but has 1300cc injectors, everything different to my current standard engine, am I better off trailing it to a mapper? Yeah. Yes. Your standard injectors at most are going to be 550cc, so putting 1300cc injectors in there, you're doubling the amount of fuel and a bit that could be going in there. Even if the lambda sensor's working perfectly, it's not going to be able to correct that amount. So it's going to be running rich, not super rich, which isn't a great state for a brand new build engine to be at. Yeah, trailer it to the mapper or fit the standard injectors in there, just while you're getting some a few debugging miles on the engine. Just check for leaks and what have you. Pop the standard injectors back in there. Just check it off boost, make sure it's not leaking, make sure there's no horrendous issues, and then drive it up to map in with the 550s in. Swap the 1300s in when you're waiting to be mapped, or trailering it up there with the 1300s. But I would certainly, if you can, put the standard injectors back in just to get a few miles on it and just get a little bit of run time on it. Right, Mike. What could be wrong when adding to the VE table but the AFR remains lean? It could be the fuel pump's maxed out. Depends on what the injector pulse width is. If it's, if it's within like up to 100, then it might be that there's another compensation that's going in the Carberry or the VE side of like the ROM side of things, but generally I'd say fuel pump running weak, but see what the injector pulse width or duty cycle is, and that will tell you whether it's maxed out, the injectors. That's great. Love the Matea. Thinking Pettis for the Matea as want to enjoy its fast road, occasional track car. Good move. Yeah, I think Pettis are great for a road car with occasional track use. I was having this conversation with someone the other day saying, if it was a track car with occasional road use, then probably coilovers would be a better option. But for a road car that gets driven to the track sort of once every other month or so, I think they're a really good option. It's my pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure. Can the charcoal canister on the GC8 be easily removed without any problems? It depends on your country as to whether you need these kind of things for emissions tests and what have you, but I've seen lots of GC8s with the carbon canister removed without any issues. Frankie Biggs, next route you were thinking ejector standard engine 235, lovely. The 235 would always be my choice over a 2 litre. 235 is a lovely engine, particularly if you're doing an EJ22 and stroking it. Do I still travel to South Wales? Yes, I do. Yeah, message me on WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger or anywhere. There's a million ways to get hold of me, and I can tell you where I go to. Where are we? Right, following on from last question, on some occasions only at slow speeds it jerks back below 2000 RPM and when moving off from a stop, but it's not all the time. Could that also mean fuel? It could do. If you got an option to data log it, data will tell you what's going on. It's a lot easier to work based on data rather than it could be this, could be that, could be the other. You'll spend an absolute fortune solving things that are going to make no difference. Okay, Jack. Right, the smell is super strong under the bonnet, but not the exhaust, oddly. Do I have a local dyno? We could do some health runs. Yeah, dynos are great because you can actually put your head near the bonnet or under the bonnet, even if you're a little bit silly. I've done it while it's running at 100 mile an hour. You can't do that on the road. So it might be a really good idea to do that, get it on the dyno and just see whether you can spot where the fuel's coming from. If it is in the engine bay, then be worth solving that. Zane Elvins, what's the safest power to run an SF5 STI at? EJ2F5 with the 4EAT transmission. Safest power is standard power, but there's no fun in that. The transmission will cope with about 323/30 before it starts to moan. The engine is fine at that as long as it's mapped right. Less than 300, I would say, would be my recommendation. Best white line sway bar setup for an SDI Hawkeye, front versus rear, 22 versus 24. Depends what for. For the road, I'm not a great fan of the 24mm anti-roll bars for the road because you get any kind of sort of wobble on the road, and you're doing this going down the road because the car isn't moving. 22mm at the front, yeah, is a great option, but balance it with a 22 at the back. front on the softer of the 2 settings and the back on the middle of the 3 settings, I think is a good setup for the road. Makes it nice and pointy, but you're not doing that going down the road all the time. Certainly, I wouldn't be going 24mm or 25mm unless it's just a track only option. I had 25mm anti-roll bars on the race car, and they are very, very stiff. Doing that on a road car is kind of one of those things that will ruin the car for you slowly. How are we doing time wise? Okay, don't think. Right, okay. Well, the questions are kind of running out, which is great. If you got any more questions, then by all means, if I finish the live stream and you've still got a question, then pop it in the comments and I will reply to them. It might take me a few days, but I will reply to them all. If you got any other questions relating to bookings or whatever, then email me or WhatsApp or Facebook or whatever else. If you're interested in the self-tuning side of things, then I run an academy on here. Below each video there is a join button, and run loads of extra really detailed videos, sort of behind the scenes, sort of and log reviews, roast my ROMs, loads of live streams on that as well. And yeah, if you got any questions on that, bring me a message and I'll get back to you. But yeah, thank you for joining me, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one.